One of the more surprising yet impactful players from a season ago that the 76ers look to also have a big impact coming up in 2025-26. We'll break that down right here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And this episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. And let's head over to today's episode. Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats 76ers NBA G League affiliate. If you're watching us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, in addition to checking out our free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com. So Guerschon Yabusele is somebody that I loved ever since he dunked over LeBron in the Olympics. And the 76ers, they get him. And I say, all right, let's go. This is awesome. I was really impressed with what he was able to do. There's places in his game that I'm curious, Keith, how it will fit in with a Joel Embiid on the floor, with the roster we're expecting to see next year. But Guerschon Yabusele was definitely a good surprise for me and somebody that I'm excited to see going into this upcoming season.
Yeah, me too. The only question mark is, can they keep him though?
Right.
You know what I mean? As much as we all see, like, and I think he'll fit in nicely. I think that he's the type of guy that, here's the thing about Guerschon. You look at him and he's kind of like that Jared McCain mode. Whereas, when he's on the floor with other players, like when he was on the floor with the main guys, he looked good. Sometimes he struggled when he was out there by himself towards the end of the season. Now, granted, his knee was banged up too, but he struggled when he was out there with the G League guys and everything like that. Guess what? Because now everybody was game planning against him. But when you have him out there with Embiid, Paul George, Maxey, again, it's one of those things. Is if your game plan is to stop him, you're getting fired, because next thing you know, the other guys are all going to have 35, right?
Right.
So he's going to get his buckets. But here's the thing. The Sixers don't have his bird rights, right? And the reason why they don't have his bird rights, now, if they had his bird right, y'all, what they could do is they could pay him whatever they wanted to, because they got the bird rights. And even if they go over the cap, whatever, it doesn't matter. But since you don't have your bird rights, you can't pay him anything you want, and he has to fit underneath the cap, right? Unless you have a mid-level exception, what the 76ers have. But here's the deal. Right now, if they want to, he has a 1-year minimum salary of $2.1 million. The Sixers can offer him a limited salary raise, typically 120% of his previous season's salary, unless they use a mid-level. So basically, if they don't use a mid-level, all they could give them is like $2.8 million, right? Yeah. Now, that's crazy. Now, that limited raise wouldn't be enough to retain him, given how well he's performed this season. So, but when it comes to mid-level exceptions, they have options, but it could become costly. Now, here's the thing. The Sixers already have $149.1 million in guaranteed salary allocated to Joel Embiid, Paul George, Maxey, Tyrese Maxey, and McCain. While the projected salary cap is 154.6. Now here's the deal: they can use $14.1 million. Their $14.1 million non-taxpayer mid-level exception to resign Yabu, but that would hard cap them at the first apron. Right. As a result, they couldn't exceed that threshold for the entire 2025-26 league year. So then they strapped. Right. But what they could do is they could settle to give him $5.7 million. Right. Now, what that would do is that will hard cap them on a second apron. Right. But the thing is still depending on how much money Quentin Grimes demands in free agency. the Sixers could have a tough time keeping Grimes, Yabu, Kelly Oubre, in addition to the top 6 pick in the draft in June. So my question is, we know how he's going to fit in, right? But my question is, how in the world are they going to be able to keep him? Because I don't know if $5.7 million is going to be enough. And even still, if you give him that 5.7, then you have to get rid of somebody if Quentin Grimes gets paid.
That's the thing, too. And then you're kind of picking and choosing from that standpoint of who you want to keep and who's more valuable to the team. Because, and I know, listen, fans out there watching or listening to this, I know y'all love Quentin Grimes and Guerschon Yabusele, and you want both of them. But there is a world where that may really not be possible, and the 76ers are going to have to look into that. In addition to Kelly Oubre, and we broke it down, too, when we talked about it in our draft episode of that pick, trade or keep, because this could be the scenario that we're looking at going forward. To you, Keith, you like how he fits in. I like how he fits in. If they have to make a decision here, and we're talking about the 3 of Quentin Grimes, Guerschon, and Kelly Oubre, is there a player you are okay with saying, okay, maybe it's not as worth the money? Because to me, it's between Guerschon and Quentin, and I know people are going to disagree with that. I just think Kelly Oubre fits in really well with that starting lineup. Where are you at on that?
That's a weird one. That's a tough one because all 3 of them, like, the thing is, you know what? I think they're going to have a tough time keeping Yabusele.
Yeah.
I don't think that it could come down to them being able. I mean, they're saying that they can keep him, but I think that the way that he played, that someone's going to give him money. Here's the thing. If you're 29 years old and you're like a 29 years old with a role player, this could be your last salary, your last NBA contract, right? You gave up. You did a buyout just to take a minimum salary with the Sixers. So you basically lost money last year to play in the NBA. I just feel like it's just going to be tough for him to leave. I mean, no, for him to stay. I do. Now, again, if they don't get the pick, then everything's cool. But so with me, it's kind of like, I know you say you got to make this decision, but you gave up so much for Quentin. Like, you gave up a guy in Caleb Martin who was supposed to be a starter for you. Granted, he was injured, but you had him, you had him locked in on the salary. Everything was fine. And you did all that for Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes scores 40-something points multiple times. He becomes like the highlight of the second half of the season. I feel like they have no choice but to keep him. I mean, it's like a Tobias Harris situation where you gave up so much. And no, I think Tobias was Tobias gets a lot of flack for being in a bad situation. But at the same time, you knew when they made that trade for Tobias, they could not afford for Tobias to leave. You gave up too much. You just did.
And I chuckle at Tobias, too, just because of the reality of the 76ers not being in the playoffs and what happened this season, and Tobias Harris in the playoffs currently against the New York Knicks from that standpoint. No, but it's really good points you raised, too. And it's interesting because when we talked about this in the keep the pick or use the pick or get rid of it, everybody was like, well, why would you do that? This could be your future. But then fans, I'm calling you out right now. You also want Guerschon Yabusele, Quentin Grimes, and Kelly Oubre. There's a world where that is most likely not going to be able to happen. That's not going to happen. So from that standpoint, listen, I think Yabu was fantastic in the way that he fit in. I think he can be fantastic coming off the bench, but it is going to come down to a big decision, and there's going to be a lot of unhappy people as well, because I am also in the sense of keeping that pick because you do have to invest in your future if you can get in the lottery, especially if you can get in that top 3 range, if that's a possibility. You're talking about possibly getting a Cooper Flagg, an Ace Bailey, a game changer that could be in that core unit with Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey. But it's interesting things we bring up because it's nothing against Yabu. Clearly, other teams are going to see it. Clearly, other teams might go out there and offer it. In addition, Keith, before we send things off, this is something that you brought up too, that you overheard, in the sense that you were able to get on your analyst point of view of why did Dallas let Quentin go? Because they knew that they were going to have to get him money. And now the 76ers are kind of in the same boat talking about Grimes here.
Yeah, I mean, like here's the deal. Everybody knew around the league, they felt like that. I mean, because think about it. Quentin Grimes had a 30-point game in Dallas.
Right.
When Quentin Grimes was a backup for Klay Thompson, but whenever Klay wasn't playing, Quentin was out there balling, right? So they kind of knew, like, yo, this guy is going to demand money. He's going to want money. Like, we can't throw like $6-7 million at him. He's going to want more. So we're going to lose him. We're just going to lose him because we're not going to be willing to pay that. So then he comes to the Sixers. So it's kind of like everyone knows that this guy is trying to get paid, and he's probably going to get paid. And especially after the way he played with the Sixers. Now I get it. You know, he was playing while they were tanking, and he was getting all the shots and everything. But at the same time, he became such a fan favorite, like your boy B-Ball Paul.
Yeah.
Remember that offseason where the Sixers weren't doing anything? And then all of a sudden the Utah Jazz threw money at Paul Reed, and everybody was like, they better do something. If they don't sign Paul Reed, I'm done with the 76ers. I think it'll become this way with Quentin Grimes. People are going to be like, they better do something. If they don't sign Quentin Grimes, I'm done with the 76ers.
And I totally agree with you, because not only do people like the talent that they saw, but he was the lone bright spot when the 76ers were tanking and were really hard to watch. And 76ers fans had a reason to watch because of Quentin Grimes himself as well. So yeah, it's going to be an uproar. It's going to be crazy. We're here for the offseason craziness as well, because it's going to be an interesting one as we break it down. But talking about Grimes and going back to Yabusele here, the thing about Guerschon is he's 6'8". We've seen a really small lineup for the 76ers this year without Joel Embiid on the floor. So do they have to get bigger? Is that something that's going to hurt them going into this next season with or without Joel Embiid's availability? We'll touch on that on the other side here on Locked On 76ers. Basketball and hockey playoffs are here, and there's no better time to turn your sports knowledge into real cash with Prize Picks, the top destination for daily fantasy sports action. Prize Picks makes it simple. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you are in. You can even mix and match players across basketball, hockey, baseball for more of a shot to win 2,000 times your cash. Here's what I'm playing this week on Prize Picks. Basketball, Nikola Jokic for more than 25 points and Jaylen Brown for more than 4 assists. Taco Tuesday discounts and Flex Friday promos. There's even more value each and every week. And when you win, you get paid fast, sometimes as little as 15 minutes. So make sure you download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Make sure you run your game. So there was moments this season where Paul George was the second tallest or also the tallest player on the floor. Keith, to me, they absolutely have to get a little bit bigger, because you do not want Paul George being your second tallest player on the floor. Granted, this depends on the health of Joel Embiid, but if he's out on a back-to-back and PG is out there standing in that 6'8" with the Yabusele or whoever that may be, you kind of have yourself a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, they got to get bigger. I mean, the thing is, like, when we talked about it before, Nico Batum, they thought they were going to get him. They didn't get him. And then, you're trying to throw out a lineup where you say we got interchangeable parts. But, you got two 6'8" dudes, or you could say 6'7", 6'8", talking about Paul George and Kelly Oubre, but your power forward was the 6'5" guy and Caleb Martin, right? Yeah. And then when you take him out, you're bringing in another 6'5" guy and KJ McDaniels. And then, KJ Martin. And then, then you got, okay, well, let's see what Ricky Council can do, right? They were just too small. And don't get me wrong, like, I get it. This is positionless basketball, and You want athletic guys in who can just run to the rim and do whatever. But, I just feel like, they got to get bigger. And they were getting destroyed on the boards. I mean, they were just getting dominated on the glass because they just didn't have anyone there. It was like, the one thing about the Sixers, they were slow and they were small, right? And then when we talk about Joel, right? Yeah. And everybody was saying, no, it's going to work because we got Joel. Well, Joel only played 19 games, right? So it didn't work without, just didn't. And so to me, it's one of those things they definitely have to get bigger at the 4 spot. They have to. And I get it. You got a lot of interchangeable parts, Justin Edwards, all these other guys who could play different positions. I understand that. But you need some real power forwards. You need some.
And especially, too, when we talk about the duo of Jaron McCain and Tyrese Maxey, you're definitely looking to try to get bigger in that position because, yes, we were in agreement in the sense that we don't see them in the starting lineup together necessarily, but there is going to be situations where those two are on the floor, whether it's late in the game. Jaron McCain, if he stays healthy and plays at the level he was last year, he is going to get starter minutes, which means you are going to be smaller in the backcourt and you need some help on the other side of things. So I get it. Joel Embiid is out there. He's able to bring in that hype, but there's also a reality that Joel Embiid will not play back-to-backs next year. He's going to have to sit out some games for rest. So you absolutely need to. And it's interesting because you can look throughout this draft class as well. Now, when you're talking about positionless basketball, and I look at Ace Bailey from the standpoint, he's 6'10", right? But he can also play out on the wing. He's not necessarily going to drop down in the power forward position. He can, and he's very good at kind of that positionless area of basketball as well. He's somebody, if the 76ers can get him, would love to for the height, the availability, and the positionless basketball from that standpoint as well. But I do think that the 76ers, if they are smart in this draft class, I understand there's a lot of good guards, and there's a lot of guards out there that are a little smaller, that can run the floor, that can shoot. And you're still maybe looking for a shooter, especially if you're not bringing back Eric Gordon. But that might also be a priority for Philadelphia going into this draft as well, or seeing what they can get throughout the offseason. Because I'm going to tell you right now, people, no matter how healthy he is, Joel Embiid isn't playing every game next year.
Nah, not at all. But here's the thing. This one thing I will say, though, if you got it for that first pick, you got to take the best available player.
Right. Good point.
But aside from that, you got to go and try to get somebody big. Now, in the past, like they had some guys who were power forwards who they turned into centers, like Paul Reed and people like that. Nah, you got to get this guy to be a 4. You have to.
Right. And the thing too, like I really like Adem Bona, but he is not going to be able to play in that power forward position. To me, his skills translate to a center, but then he's kind of too small at some places to be that center. He's listed as 6'10", but a little bit generous there, I think, for Adem Bona in terms of the height as well. So for him, he just doesn't have the skills that translate. I even think Paul Reed had better skills that could translate to a power forward than Adem Bona does. Bona, to me, is that true kind of backup center in the sense of what his skills have. And it would take a lot of molding and a lot of growing for him to be able to transition to that. So, Keith, I'm in agreement with you because to me as well, if you want to put smaller lineups in that backcourt, that is something you're going to have to prioritize. Like the Cavs were also able to do and why they can have a smaller backcourt. That's why it works out for them. We've seen it work out in this league. The 76ers are going to have to try to do the same here.
Yeah, you're right. 100%. I mean,
so they do, yeah. They do have to get bigger here, and we'll keep discussing this and more. Let us know in the comments who you like in terms of if you want it to be through the draft or anything in between from that standpoint for the Philadelphia 76ers, and we'll be right back on the other side. And make sure you check out FanDuel for all of the odds for any sport that you possibly want. Whether it's betting on the over, under, or anything in between, FanDuel is the spot to go to, especially during the NBA playoffs, MLB season, really in action right now, starting to heat up. You can bet on any sport at any time, so make sure you head over to FanDuel today. New customers can get $250 in bonus bets when you face your first $5 bet and it wins. And of course, you're going to want to bet on all of these playoff games for the NBA, and a lot of series are heating up at the moment to see who will go to round 2. By doing that, you can head over to FanDuel. Once again, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. The best thing about FanDuel as well is if you're a new customer, you've never really done sports betting before, you kind of want to get into it. FanDuel has a really, really good props that make it really easy to do what you need to do. And hey, new customers have a chance to win, so make sure you head over to FanDuel today. So we started this episode out with Guerschon Yabusele talking about how the 76ers have to get bigger as well. And these are some things that we're really looking at throughout this offseason. And we continue to harp on the reality of the 76ers are in a situation now where they're not going to be able to afford everybody. You want to bring everybody back, but that might not really be the reality of the situation. Guerschon's going to probably get a lot of teams to look at him. Quentin Grimes will as well. What about Kelly Oubre here, Keith? And I want to turn it over to him real quick because we've only went in on his situation a little bit, talking about how we like him in the starting lineup. Do you like a world where it's Guerschon, Quentin, and no Kelly? Because to me, I said it in the beginning, that's a no-go. I think Kelly fits way too well in this lineup. But there could be a reason for the 76ers to think the opposite here.
Well, the thing is, the problem with the 76ers is that, Kelly Oubre has, I believe it's 8.7 million player option. And, there's going to be, you always figure out if there's someone out there in the market that wants to pay me more, then you don't pick it up. But if you get a sense that they're not going to pick it up, or they're not going to give you more money, another team, then what do? You just say, I'm staying. So I feel like, and then it's up to the 76ers. They're going to have to try to trade him to get rid of, right? So where are you going to get back for him, right? So that's the problem right then and there. But to me, Kelly, he is Mr. Versatility, right? He can do so much. He can play the 2. He can play the 3. He's mastered how to play without the ball. Like, we still, as much as Quentin Grimes is a good player, we have to figure out what does he look like when he doesn't have the ball. We already know what Kelly can do. And I'm not saying it, if I'm the Sixers, I'm bringing Quentin back too. But what I'm just saying, I'm making this point to let you know that we know that Kelly can move without the ball, and he can play great from the dunker's position. He grabs rebounds. He does a lot of things. I know there are certain people who I wanted him to do more. But right now, I feel like if you're the 76ers, if you're trying to win a championship, this is the type of player you need, a dominant role player. You know what I'm saying? Like a guy who thrives in that role. Everybody can't score the ball. Is how can you impact the game in other ways? And he does that. So, yeah, I wouldn't get rid of him. But at the same time, I don't feel like the decision is fully going to be theirs. I mean, at least, we're just saying, okay, Kelly, we're not re-signing you. We can't do that. It's just that if he picks up the option and you don't want him, then you got to try to trade him and see if you can get anything for him. Now, ideally, they would probably want to get an expiring contract, right? Somebody whose deal is probably non-guaranteed or whatever it is, but that you could waive them or get a bunch of picks for them.
To me, Kelly is similar to what Josh Hart is to New York. Now, I think Josh Hart plays a little bit of a bigger role with the Knicks, but when you're talking about somebody that's a hustle guy that can go out there and play without the ball, and I understand where the fans are coming from and saying, hey, we want Kelly to do more, this, that, and the other. You wanted him to do more because the guys that were supposed to do more weren't doing anything. Paul George wasn't supposed to stand in the corner and not be able to play with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And that is still to be determined. I do understand that. But at the same point, when we're talking about looking in the future, looking for a team the 76ers are trying to be in 2025, 26, Kelly Oubre is the guy that you want on this team. You need somebody that doesn't want the ball in their hands at all times. You can't have a Quentin Grimes in that lineup and talking about starters, which I didn't think he would be anyway, but have him with Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Quentin all at the same time. You need somebody else that can be out there being able to distribute, being able to set those screens, being able to move without the ball, being able to get on those cuts. Defensively, he's long, they can fend out on the perimeter. To me, and I've said this before, I like when the 76ers got him. I like how he fits in with this team. He just has to kind of watch where he's walking when he's in Philadelphia a little bit, and then we're all good on my end with Kelly Oubre. But from that standpoint, I do think it's important for people to understand how valuable he is. And just because he's not on the stat sheet like Quentin Grimes was and like Jaron McCain was, and Kelly Oubre did have some good games as well, he, to me, is a key role player that you want if you're expecting your big three to be able to do what they're paid to do and supposed to do next season.
Yeah. He's a good player, and I think what you're saying in regard, because him and Josh are different players, but what you're saying but what you're saying is like they're like they both excel at their role.
Yes, exactly right. Because Josh Hart can go off and have a big game, but he can also score 4 points in a game and have a huge impact, whether it's in the rebounding, the deflections. Yeah. Exactly. So, and that's to me what Kelly is too. They're very different players in how they play, but their role is very similar. And that's important. We saw how that's important for New York. It's important in Philadelphia too. And we know that, especially alongside Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. So we will keep discussing all off season long just about the updates of the Philadelphia 76ers, because I know there's people out there waiting. Where are they going to end up in the lottery? What are they going to do with the pick? Who's going to stay on the team? Well, it's going to continue to get closer and closer, people, as we look ahead for Philadelphia. So let us know how you're feeling about the Sixers off season in the comments as well. And we appreciate you guys staying locked in with the Philadelphia 76ers. And once again, even though we know that it's the off season and they're not in the playoffs, the best thing about it is you guys still have chances to win prizes as well. You could win by subscribing. Subscribe between April 7th and April 30th for a chance to win one of these amazing prizes. A $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your sports cave, $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. Get exclusive insights into free agency, draft coverage, and team updates for delivered straight to your inbox. Join the Locked On 76ers for trusted coverage every day. Subscribe to enter today by clicking the link in the description. Well, thank you guys all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we will see you guys next time.